So let's talk about trends that are shaping corporate operations department or that are at least impacting corporate operations departments. One, an obvious one is digital transformation. This trend is continuing and accelerating, and operations departments are leveraging different digital technologies like AI, the Internet of Things, and other automation to streamline processes and become more efficient and improve their overall decision making. The push that really started heavy with the pandemic accelerated adoption of remote work, and operations department heavily investing in deploying and supporting remote collaboration and tools so that we can work in more distributed ways, and that includes project management and portfolio management. And then there's agile and lean practices taking hold. Agile and lean methodologies are no longer just for software development, and operations departments and many other disciplines are adopting these principles to improve responsiveness and just enhance their overall flexibility. And then the whole mindset of customer centricity. We're in the age of the customer, and operations departments are aligning their process to more closely align what the customers expect and are demanding now. They are much more informed and demanding audiences for us today, and we need to enhance their experiences to retain them as customers. And then there's the data analytics and business intelligence. Operations departments are leveraging data analytics and business intelligence tools to not only gain insights, but help make decisions and identify areas where improvements needed, and possibly even get more early warning when change is needed. Risk management. We are in an era of volatility and uncertainty in our business environments, and operations departments have to support that and sustain that. And we're placing greater emphasis on risk management and contingency and mitigation plans so that we can maintain our business continuity and continue our growth plans. And then as we go through digital transformation and new tools like AI, operational professionals are investing in reskilling and upskilling people to adapt to and be proficient with changing and new technologies. And it may even, these technologies evolve or morph what those job roles are or what they do on a day-to-day basis based upon the advent of those technologies. And that impacts the operations function as well. There's challenges with all this. Let's just think about this in terms of challenges with initiatives and resources, initiatives, projects, and the resources revolved around those. There's the resource allocation piece where ensuring that we are allocating our resources efficiently to the various disciplines, types of projects and initiatives can be complex. And often in operations, we need to prioritize among the competing demands that we have for resource utilization among all the different types of work we're supporting. Then there's the coordination aspect. We have different teams and departments cross-functionally in an organization that sometimes have to be involved. Even geographically dispersed or global initiatives can be challenging. And if a lack of, effective communication, coordination can lead to delays, duplication of efforts, people doing the exact same thing in different places, or even conflicts for resource allocation. On the change management side, as we're adapting to all these things, we're implementing change. And sometimes there's a resistance to change and, workflows and systems and even things that we might have to change in the culture. And we must manage resistance to that change to ensure smooth transitions, because if we don't, we could risk disruptions within our ongoing operations and in the servicing of our customers, et cetera. Now, risk management, because of the volatility and the rapid pace of change in the marketplace today, we have to identify those risks and we have to assess them. We have to have contingency plans, and we have to minimize the impact of these unexpected events. In uncertain economic times, we may be looking at budget constraints. Limited budgets may restrict the ability of us to do all the things that we would desire to do or like to do. And having to be prioritizing these things that are on our plate or potentially on our plate, we have to look at things like value, return on investment. It becomes critical to be able to assess that in a material and objective way. Regulatory compliance, all kinds of things are coming down the pike depending on your industry, and adhering to those things really impacts operations and can add complexity to initiatives that they're already embarked upon or things they're looking at doing. And they must stay updated on relevant laws and regulations, and then move and adjust and adapt as those things come about so that we don't find ourselves in violation. Then there's the overall talent management stuff, having the right skills in this changing environment where we need more and different skills. It's crucial for successful delivery of our initiatives that we have the right talent. And we need to attract and retain such talent. Otherwise, we're going to risk our success. And then technology integration. Adopting new technologies can pose challenges in terms of, legacy infrastructure, technical debt that we may have. We may have to do things like data migration and also retrain and update our user base on all that stuff. So we must ensure that also the technology that we have aligns with our business goals and provides the expected benefits. We need to make sure, and we'll talk a little bit today about all these things intertwined. We can't just be looking at delivering the elements of the tasks in a project. There's other dimensions to consider. And then performance measurement. We have to have good KPIs and metrics so we can track and assess our progress and evaluate the success of our initiatives. And operational departments, in their work, need to define clear goals and benchmarks at which they can do that. It can't be fuzzy. We need to have something that's tangible that we can point to. Ultimately, addressing these challenges requires a combination of things: strategic planning, effective communication, stakeholder engagement, and also continuous improvement efforts within operational departments. What we see here is ongoing change, not just a point in time change, but these things are changing and forcing us to get better and improve over time continuously. Then if we take challenges in operations of aligning those resources, we talked about resource alignment challenges and making sure they're aligned with our strategic plans, our leadership strategic goals for us and direction that they want us to go in. One of the things we have to have is clear strategic objectives, and operations departments may struggle to align resources with strategic objectives if these objectives are not clear or if they're always changing. And the lack of clarity can lead to misallocation of resources and heavy inefficiencies. The communication coordination, once we talked about, everybody has to be on the same page if we're going to do this effectively. So we have stakeholders both inside operations and outside the operations department, and we need to make sure everybody's rowing in the same direction. And without clear channels of communication, there's a risk that we might misinterpret or have conflicting priorities that limit our success. Also, the balancing of short-term and long-term goals. Operations departments have pressure and conflicts in the pressure to deliver short-term results on things that keep the doors open, keep the lights on, on a day-to-day basis. And, that can get in the way of working towards the longer-term strategic things, because sometimes the immediate crises take over. And we have to balance the immediate need with the future goals, especially when resource allocation decisions need to be made, and make sure that we're still pursuing the longer range objectives of the organization. And then there's resource constraints then, depending on how we do with strategy, being able to get the right resources on the right things, both keeping the doors open, keeping the lights on, as well as pursuing our longer range strategic goals becomes paramount. But there are real resource constraints, and then we have to balance that. Resistance to change, we talked about that. That's also inherent in the way we align resources with strategy. Realignment with new strategies may actually change the way people need to do things or the way they need to look at things, and that may be unsettling for some. Measuring and evaluation with the good KPIs in this area is important as well. And then the organizational silos, we got to bridge the gap. We got to synergize these, right? So those conflicting priorities, or if they operate in isolation of one another, we can have disconnects and even things that impact success or maybe run counterproductively with each other. And we got to break these down and foster collaboration across these silos, because if not, we're not going to achieve our strategic objectives. And then there's the market dynamics. External factors in the marketplace, or customer mindsets or preferences, or the regulatory requirements that we talked about, can impact and make us turn on a dime regarding the way we're allocating resources on our initiatives. So we must adapt quickly to change, and part of the reason that people are adapting more agile approaches is so they can respond to these types of things better. And we talked about the talent piece, about having the right skills as the marketplace changes and the demands change. That impacts the alignment with strategy as well. So the key is we have to have a coordinated approach to all of this. Now, the common components of operations projects and initiatives is not too unlike what you might find in other departments. The key whole things of initial planning and initiation, establishing a charter and scope definition and budgeting, those types of things. The project management itself of having plans and schedules and timelines and resource allocations to the elements within those plans. The communication and coordination across those, as we talked about, that's important. Execution and implementation, managing the tasks that are put forward, making sure we're delivering on a quality basis, and then adapting to change, and we can course correct during the course of an active project. We talked how risk management is important and be able to identify and assess and mitigate those things. Monitor and control. The key thing is, as we go, most projects don't go exactly as planned. So we have to have performance metrics, we have to have progress tracking, issue resolution, and then we have to have corrective actions that are needed in order to keep things current and make sure we're delivering the right things. The technology and tools, right? We have to have project management software, scheduling software, collaboration tools for communication, and the data analytics that are paramount today to having the right information on a timely basis for decision making. The training and development piece, so there's training programs and skill development orientation. So as we're rolling new things out, we have to foster better change management and adoption. We have to make sure that people are trained, that they're educated, that they're oriented on what's expected of them, so that when we roll it out, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. Then there's the evaluation and closure and lessons learned in the final report. And then because this is operations, and operations then has to sustain whatever process or mechanisms are put into place within that organization, we have to have a plan to make sure that what we're doing is sustainable. But even though it's sustainable, that doesn't mean that what we first deliver is going to be the final result. We have to have continuous improvement and get better with this as we learn things, as we run into things we didn't anticipate. And so we have to build that into our plans, knowing that that's not the end of the line, that we constantly have to be looking at improvement. So if we look at organization and information silos, they breed inefficiencies and lack of alignment, like we discussed, and that the poor alignment and collaboration between participating functional areas has some tangible things that it brings up. For example, if you have multiple tools and data sources and spreadsheets scattered all over the organization, and they're trying to really coordinate on the same thing, the manual mashup of that data so that we can get a complete picture of things can be very, very time consuming and very laborious and frustrating. And then you have to take that mashed up data and manually recreate reports in a form and format that's needed. That's not fun. And then the duplication of effort of data entry, if you have to put the same updates in multiple places because different people are using different tool sets, that's not only time consuming, it's wasteful and prone to human error. And it's difficult to stay current in getting status from everybody, chasing people down and making sure they're putting their updates in all the right tools. And then the resource planning bit of it, outside of just the task status, sometimes people are treating that as a totally separate thing in like spreadsheets and other things, and it's not even really connected to the overall plan of the projects and initiatives that we're working on. So that can be, fraught with peril and with failure. So we have to first, go to this next wave of strategic alignment, and we have to align strategy with execution to make sure that we're working on the right things and delivering value in the right areas. And the Gartner Group talks about this as a set of processes involving people, strategy, and operations. And so that we can have shared objectives of what the business strategist or our leadership wants to see, and understanding and execution by those executing the change in a way that's consistent with what leadership wants. So we have, the system of strategy development and planning, the organizational alignment with those strategies, and then there's the operational and tactical plans that have to happen. And then we learn as we go and we monitor, and then we adapt afterwards as a basis for increasing value by executing that strategy well. So the key is it's all interrelated, and it's more than just putting a plan in place. And then the dimensions of what we call strategic portfolio management, or the acronym of SPM, it kind of coalesces all these different things. And so instead of just having a strategy and a project, there are other things to consider, as we talked about in the challenges area, right? There may be products that we need to understand, upgrade, update, to be successful. There may be applications or systems in our organizations that need to be addressed or considered to be successful. There may be business capabilities or processes that we need to totally rethink in order to roll out something that we want to meet a certain objective or strategy. So meaning there's many facets and many components of this that need to be considered and have visibility into as we're planning and as we're executing. So the leadership requires strategic portfolio management to support enterprise-wide strategy to execution alignment, bridging that gap on that cross-functional collaboration and making sure we don't have the pains that silos bring. The definition of key business strategies, right, is to mapping to the key portfolio elements like the business capabilities, like digital and physical products or assets that we need, the applications and the projects themselves, and be able to define and prioritize these things together with one another to make sure that we're considering all the things we need to consider and have visibility into all the things we need to consider at all times during the execution and the planning phases. Now, this involves leadership who sets that overall direction. We have the IT and or functional management who owns the assets themselves and the applications and the infrastructure. And then the execution teams, the project teams, the PMOs, they plan to deliver the projects in pursuit of reaching those business goals ultimately. Now, we're at a stage where these disciplines are taking hold and they're becoming prevalent, and the tools that we're going to show you here today support that. But there's a long way to go. You know, the analysts are saying that only a small percentage of organizations are highly effective at all three key attributes of strategic portfolio management, meaning portfolio alignment, ongoing portfolio flexibility, and value-driven decision-making. 16%. So we have a lot of room for improvement and way to go here in adopting this multi-dimensional approach. And the fragmented approach can lead to pain, costs, and just failure. So the other key thing that really, I think, impacts operations as much, or if not more than anybody, is that we can overemphasize local customer needs and operational things on the day-to-day things, and it could unintentionally pull the whole enterprise away from strategic objectives and just focusing on the tactical, immediate now priorities and crises that might happen over the course of the day. And we can delay or get deferred or get sidetracked from actually achieving what we're strategically trying to do. Now, OnePlan as a solution provides a path to strategic portfolio management and a complete solution for the enterprise that addresses the things that we talked about here. For example, the business leaders be able to clearly define and identify objectives and key results, or OKRs, or value streams for continuous delivery, and be able to have those in the system and be able to track them and to quantify them so that we can execute on those strategies, but then leverage that in other ways. The execution leaders, they build plans and they may be using different methodologies. Some may be using more agile approaches, some may be using more waterfall, some may be more adaptive with a combination of both. Some may be delivering professional services or outsourced services, et cetera, product development, et cetera. Those things that we're doing, regardless of the method or the type of work, should be aligned with the strategy that we're doing. If it doesn't align with where the organization is going, we have to question why we're doing it in the first place. And then the functional leaders, the one that actually own these other elements that we have to consider, the overall enterprise and business architecture, the application portfolio, the product portfolio. These are things that if they're not addressed and addressed in a timely fashion in conjunction with what we're doing with the rest of the initiative, it can impact the ability to just succeed with that initiative overall. Now, OnePlan, strategic portfolio management has a lot of elements to it, and organizations are at different levels of maturity. And the key is to be able to meet you where you are, whether a crawl or walk or run stage in strategic portfolio management. But just because you're not fully mature in these areas does not mean you shouldn't get started. You can incrementally tackle these things as well, that we'll show you here today. So, what kind of things do we have in the OnePlan solution? Well, it has its full capability to capture and track OKRs in a strategic plan. It has the full ability for you to track portfolios of enterprise and business architecture elements. We'll talk about that a little bit today. And in consideration of those strategies and a consideration of the infrastructure that we have and the architecture that we have, people, customers, internal, external within your organization may be coming up with ideas and requests that should, as we vet them, align with what we have identified up above. And as we do that and we consider and prioritize these things as we talked about in the challenges, we can then build plans and decide what portfolio of initiatives we're going to work on. And the portfolio planning area there is really about selecting the right things to work on. And then how we visually look at those things on a real-time basis could be more, tabular list views like this with different elements. Could be more agile approaches with portfolio boards for the way you look at that if you're a more agile-oriented group. And then roadmap views to look at when things are going to be delivered and how they relate to certain key events that may be going on within your organization or timelines. There's the capacity plan. We talked about it's important to have the right resources at the right time. Well, as we're selecting these ideas and requests, do we have the right mix and quantity of resources in our capacity to deliver on the things that we're committing to? We have to strike that balance, either that or go out and get more resources. And then there's a financial aspect. Dollars are not unlimited. Does what we commit to from an overall portfolio plan, do we have the financial budgeting and wherewithal to support all that? Does it fit within there? Or are we overcommitting? And then as things change or as new things come down the road, how do we evaluate getting those done? By doing what if scenario analysis modeling and looking at alternative plans on how we might accomplish those things. What we might move, what we might cancel, what we might defer in order to take on a new piece of work that maybe is more important. And then the execution piece is where we build work plans, whether it be a more traditional waterfall work plan or an agile plan. OnePlan has the full capabilities to do that type of planning and hybrids of those right within OnePlan itself. But if you're committed to other scheduling or agile tools, OnePlan has pre-built connectors for the popular ones out there: Microsoft Project for the web and planner, Smartsheet, right, Monday.com, Azure DevOps, Jira, you name it. The idea there is we can leverage what you've already invested in from a tool and from a thought process in the planning mechanisms there. And also within that, track things like your issues and your risks, which we said are very important, and track changes and evaluate changes and go through a change management process within the execution of your initiative itself. And then planning for resources within the specific individual initiative that all rolls up to that larger capacity plan we just talked about earlier. That's there with negotiation of the resources that may be managed by certain individuals in the functional groups, but the projects need to solicit those in matrixed organizations, which many organizations are, and have that roll into an overall capacity plan. And then the team members, we talked about having current and up-to-date information. Well, what about instead of silos, having an individual place where a user can go and see all the work that's been put on their plate across all the projects and initiatives that they're on, and be able to status those things in a My Work area and give the progress on that dynamically in one place. Or if you need to collect time, whether it be for external billing, whether it be for chargebacks, whether it be for capitalization of labor, there's a built-in timesheet so you can capture time, so you can do time and progress in the same tool. And then the reporting around that, whether it be individual project status reports, dashboards, at the portfolio level or different program levels, whatever it might be, that's all in there, including the visualizations of how these things all interrelate with one another. Ultimately, our goal is to have the right outcomes and deliver value and deliver the right things to the right people. Now, in this day and age, we couldn't do a presentation like this without somehow mentioning artificial intelligence. And OnePlan actually has its own built-in Sophia GPT to help you with all of these different disciplines that you see up above. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to select the right work that aligns with the strategy of the organization, and we want to then execute well and do the work right and deliver the right value. So Sophia GPT, just a little bit about that. It is really a game changer. It's many of you are using ChatGPT and other things, but Sophia is a purpose-built AI assistant that is built for strategic portfolio management and OnePlan. It is is using Microsoft's Azure OpenAI, which has all the security, compliance, and privacy that you get with the Microsoft Cloud, as opposed to the general OpenAI and ChatGPT that's out there in the open internet. But it also understands what's going on in OnePlan. It's got its general knowledge that it has from Azure OpenAI, but it's been trained on OnePlan and the discipline of SPM, and will also factor in the data that you have in there as it gives you guidance and assistance and answers that you're looking for to your prompts. So the idea here is to really change the game and make us more effective in strategic portfolio management. And just so you know, it's a native part of the OnePlan solution. It's always available in OnePlan. It's that little blue button down in the bottom right of this screen that you're looking at. And as you click on Sophia, it then, depending on where you're at in the tool, context sensitive wise, it'll give you some sample questions that you might ask, but you're free to ask it any prompt that you may desire in order to see what it can come up with for you, okay? And then where we are now, it really is an inbuilt AI assistant, but just know that we are already working on some more fully autonomous use cases where it can predict or anticipate what you're going to need and offer up some things. And it's going to be not too long in the future that you're going to see OnePlan provide more autonomous things rather than things where you have to prompt it by asking it certain things to get a language-based response. Now, all the things we talked about, we're focused on operations here today in this webinar, but operationally, you're probably going to have to touch all of these different areas, if not more, in your organization, all these different departments, right, or functional areas. And OnePlan is designed for departments and programs fully across the enterprise. Now, when you incorporate AI into SPM, just be aware that we're not asking you to radically change the concepts of SPM. We're looking to have it be an assistant to make us more effective. For example, it can help us streamline intake and prioritization, right? Help us in that decision-making process. It can help us focus on building next generation talent, because having our existing people get proficient at leveraging AI to get better at their job may free them up to do more high value activities than they're currently doing today. It helps in the overall embracing of disruptive technologies, right? And that impacts our overall portfolio management when disruptive technologies come down the pike, or anything disruptive that comes in from the marketplace. This can help us adapt more quickly to those types of things. Now, just food for thought, use cases for AI and strategic portfolio management. It can help us with the overall strategic plans we have. It can help us with portfolio management and the optimization of our portfolio. It can help us with work management. It can actually help us build work plans, schedules, and resource plans. It can help us with risk assessment. It can help us with resource allocation. It can help us with looking at the financials and forecasting where we may end up or what we may need to pay attention to. And here, for example, is, let's just say from an operations perspective, we asked, we're trying to build a strategy. Let's say simply we wanted to ask Sophia, provide us a list of viable OKRs for corporate operations, right? That question, I can ask it here in this context of provide me a list of 5 viable objectives and key results for corporate operations. So let me run this. And in the interest of time, I recorded a couple, and I'm going to show you a couple live ones too. But I'm going to ask it this question of generating some OKRs for operations. And as I expand this thing to a full screen, it's saying it gives me an objective to improve operational efficiency and 3 related key results to there about reducing average time spent on repetitive tasks, reduce the number of manual entries, etc. Enhance internal communication, which we cited was important. Optimize financial performance by reducing operational expenses and improving budget forecasting accuracy. Strengthen supply chain management. So once again, these are the types of things it can help us with. Rather than thinking of these things from scratch, it can at least give us a basis of a foundation that we may edit and put our own slant on. But the idea is it's making us better, more efficient, and helping us deliver more things.